I was born out in India. My father was out in India. My father was a lieutenant colonel in the Indian Army, and I was born out in India. And I came to England when I was about 8 years old in 1898. 1898, when I was 8 years old, arrived in England, and there I was educated. And my father and mother both died. I was an orphan, and I was educated for the army. And but unfortunately, when I went in those days for the military college, there was an awful lot of people in for it, and only a few vacancies. I think when I went in for it, there were 50 vacancies at the college, and there were 150 applicants. And I had to see that only the top people got it in the exams, and I wasn't. I got about 60th, but then I wasn't within the first 50, so I couldn't make it. Twice I tried, and I was just under it. And so my uncle, who was at Crawford, I don't know if you've heard of Wedwood Manor, have you? Mm-hmm. Well, he's my uncle. He's my cousin, I should say. He was a retired naval officer, and I was at rather a loss to know what to do. And stop it. And he'd been out to BC years ago. He was in the Navy, stationed at Squamalt, and he advised me. He said, "Well, if there's one thing you want to do, BC is a coming country, and it's the place to go. Otherwise, I wouldn't have known anything about it." He'd been to Kootenays and knew all about it. So, on his advice, I came out in 1908. And I didn't go to Howser immediately up in the Lardeau. As a matter of fact, what happened to me was there was a thing in England called the Court of Chancery. If orphans, sometimes, if there's no one to look after them, the government will be your official guardians. The government, and so my relations had me made me a ward in Chancery. It means the British government was my guardians. And you know, sir, that when I applied to come to BC, they wouldn't let me come because it was pretty tough in those days. The country, there were a lot of bad lot of people, and they thought as a young fellow I was underage. They said, no, when you're of age, 21, you can do what you like, but until you're 21, you stay here. So then we didn't know what to do, but how we got around it by the end, they said, right, now if we can appoint someone to be our guardian in Canada, it's all red tape, you see, it wasn't necessary. But if you can get someone to be your guardian in Canada until you're 21, we'll let you go, otherwise no. And we fooled around and eventually got a chap who said he would act as my guardian, you see, and they combed that man's record from one end to the other to see if it was okay. And eventually they let me come. Well, I arrived in on the 1st of May 1908 in Nelson, and I did various things, odd things, and I first of all went to Pilot Bay. I worked for an outfit called, what were they now? Baker and Craven. They ran a farm, a dairy farm, and they offered me a job, to which I stayed with for 2 years, $15 a month on my board. And stayed there, I was 19 years of age, you see, and I stayed there for 2 years. And when I came of age, 21, my father left me a little money, and I'd saved all my interest because I didn't have any money. I saved it all, and I had some wages. I saved, and I bought a place on the Shutty Bench. Mm-hmm. Well, I got 10 acres on the Shutty Bench, and I built a house, a 5-room house for $1,800. Believe that or not, with an open fireplace and everything.
And is this the dog's ripping up a?
No, it's his own bed, I think, probably.
Oh, okay.
Is it a square?
Blue.
Is he ripping up your thing?
No, it's I guess it's.
Oh, it's his own bed. Yes, he shouldn't do it though. Yes, puppy. What is it? Cindy, come. Yes. Well, I got this. I got this. It's a long story, but I got this farm that bought this place and built a house until the war came.
What year did you buy it? In
1911. 1911 I bought it, and had it there. I hadn't got to the stage where I planted trees. I'd cleared some land and fenced it, and built a barn and a house, and that's about all. And then the war came, and in the end of 1915 I enlisted in the Canadian Army, went overseas, and I was overseas till 20. I arrived back in Canada in April 22, because I stayed on the Indian Army for a while after I'd been there. And when I came back, I found my thing had changed. All my neighbours on Shutty Bench left, and there were a bunch of strangers in. I didn't know anyone, and my house had been ransacked by someone.
Was it still standing?
Oh yes, I've sold it. Oh yeah, I bet there's some people living in it now.
It's there today.
Oh yes, and so I was kind of disgusted. I didn't know quite what to do. But my brother had bought a share with a chap up at Howser called Ainsworth, T.J. Ainsworth. He'd taken a half share in his farm, but he didn't want to come back. He wanted to stay on the prairie, so he gave me his share. He said, well, you better take my share over with Ainsworth up at Howser. And I went into partnership with up there in Howser. That's the flat right across from the store. You don't remember it before it flooded, do you?
No.
Oh no. Well, you see, there was all that lovely. Right there were Howser townside was. We were across the valley. We had 32 acres right on the lake, and instead of farming, which is no good, no nothing in it. My partner and myself, we ran a small logging camp in the Lardeau Valley. That's in the other valley. It was not flood zone, in the Lardeau Valley. And we had the timber right below where Howser Station used to be. You know where the road turns into Howser? Mm-hmm. Well, from there to the bridge, down where that bridge crosses the Lardeau, that strip on each side of the road, well, we had that as a timber limit. And we logged that for about 5 or 6 years. Poles, cheaply cedar poles, and did very well too.
Did you take out other things or just cedar poles? Did you take out fir?
No market for logs in those days.
For saw logs?
No. There were no local mills, and they didn't know. The only logs we took out were white pine, which the old matchbox factory is gone out now, but they had a matchbox factory in Nelson, Horton and Powell, and they took our pine. They took our pine logs, and for every 1,000 feet of pine we gave them, they'd take 1,000 feet of spruce, because they used spruce for matches too. And what they did, we had a siding put in our camp. We were right at about halfway between the 11 and 12 mile border on the Lardeau River. And we had a camp there, and the CPR put a siding in for us, and we used to load a lot of our stuff there. And Horton and Powell let us log for them. They wanted half their logs on cars, put out every week, and the other half we put on the bank of the Lardeau River, and they drove it in the spring. Drove it in the spring, and. So that's what happened. There was quite a nice settlement of people in those days over on the flat. They were, now you see, this is what a lot of people, I don't like some of there's a story about the Lardeau. I think there's a story about I don't know if you've read some of them. Anyway, there was someone wrote an account of the Lardeau, and they had they didn't know, they couldn't have had first-hand information, because they were inclined. They said that the bunch of men who were up, the settlers up there, were remittance men. Well, now that's an absolute lie. I only know of two in the whole of this country that were real. There were a lot of them. Most of them on the prairie around Calgary. Those first. And a remittance man, if I don't know if you know it, but he was an Englishman or a foreigner of any kind. He came to this country because his family, he couldn't get on with his family. He'd either raised hell, or he was an alcoholic, or raised hell with women or something, and so sent him away to Canada to get rid of him, and gave him a remittance to keep him while he was away. And that was a real remittance man. Well, this lady, or this person, said, a bunch of remittance men came up there. Well, there wasn't a single man. They were all retired men, Army, Navy men, retired, and chaps who independent. They didn't have any remittances at all, but they had a certain amount of money. You see, that's where they got mixed up. If you have money, they said remittance. You see, it wasn't. A remittance man has had nothing, but his family send him a donation of hundreds every month to keep him away. And they had a very bad name, you see. Mm-hmm. And I was damn annoyed because it sort of earmarks them as no good, you see, in a way. So that was, well, anyway, there were a bunch of people there. There was some storekeepers, a man called Simpson, and there was a bunch of trappers and miners and chaps there around. Very nice chaps. They were very, very nice. You could get on with them, do anything for you. And that's it. Now, what else would you like to know now? Because I can go into anything now about the railway, the transportation, or what.
Well, let's go back a bit and
yes.
And, I'd like to know what Kaslo was like when you first went there and bought land, and why you chose Kaslo.
Oh, Kaslo. Well, I told Kaslo that, as a matter of fact, was the best winter I've ever put in this country. It was a very nice little town. The boom was over, mind you, the mining boom, but there was a lot of very nice people there, and I liked the country. I liked I think it's far more scenic than anything around here, and I met some fellows I liked, and there was a big influx of settlers on the Shutty Bench. I think within those 3 years where I bought, if I remember rightly, there are about 20 different people settled on the Shutty Bench. And all over the world. There was a New Zealander, an Australian, chap from South Africa, Scotch, Irish, Welsh, English, and some Eastern Canadian sons had come out and joined. And so it's altogether there were about 25 or 30 of us there, all about the same age, around 22, 3, 4, that age. And they were a very nice bunch. There was a retired Gurkha officer from India, Colonel Campbell. He had 2 daughters, and he settled out there, but he was killed in the First World War. But he's there, and it looked like a very nice situation. But the war changed; these chaps all went away. Nearly all went. Some of them were killed. Some of them went back and never came back. And a bunch of people came in I didn't know, and so that's why I left it. But Kaslo, I had a very, very, very nice time in Kaslo. We had lots of social life, parties and things, and there was a lot going on for a small town. Lots going on for it. There's nothing. Yeah.
When did you first go to Kaslo?
About 1911.
So but when you were fishing on the lake and when you were working at the dairy, did you travel up there and had you seen it before?
No, I hadn't. When I left this man at Powell Bay where I was working, I thought I'd go up and have a look at Kaslo. I didn't know anything. I didn't know Shutty Bench or anything. But when I got there, I just happened in the hotel and talking to people, and they introduced me to the chap who had land there, so I liked the whole setup. You see. Mm-hmm. And
was it Shutty that you bought from, or
who
did you buy from? Was it?
Yes, I bought it. There were two older settlements up there, Shuttys, which is called the Shutty Bench, the Shutty family, and there were also the Cayleys, a family called Cayleys. And now in that town here, they're electricians and they're great. But and one of the Cayley, their brothers, 2 brothers, and they owned a lot of the land, and I bought it from one of the Cayleys. I think I paid $100 an acre for it. It's about I got 14 acres, and the beautiful about the Shutty Bench was it had a wonderful water supply. There were a lot of creeks on it, and that was very important in those days. You get good water. So I got in, and I had a friend of mine who was a very good carpenter. He was one of my neighbors. He was a carpenter, and he and I built my house. And just to show you what prices were in those days, what do you call it? A bricklayer from Kaslo, who just come out from England, he contracted, this is wonderful, to build me a big open fireplace and chimney for $100. And it really is a beautiful thing, great big long. It took about 2 foot, 2 foot, 3 foot wood, and I had that put in, and something else I put in. I don't know whether they've got it now. I forget the name of the people who own my land, but it's there up there now. I thought to myself, now I like this view. I've got to have something. So I bought from Kaslo. There's a store gone shut up in Kaslo, and I bought a big store window, about huge thing, and I put it in my front room, looking over the lake. And everybody thought I was crazy. That's the first time. Now, of course, everyone has a picture, but that's the first time. And they came and said, "Oh God, look at that huge window! What on earth do you put that in for?" And I put it in. So I liked the place. I liked it very much. But of course, the war and everything changed it. So that was it. That was it. The boat. As you know, the Kootenays came up from left Kaslo every morning at 6 into Nelson. Arrived in Nelson about 9:30, and pulled out again at 4 in the afternoon. And so, if you want doing shopping, you would make the trip in one day, and everything was. Oh, it was wonderful. You got out coming home on the boat. The CPR gave you a 7-course dinner for $1.25. Tickets, you see. A really lovely meal, and all the silver and tablecloth and everything was there. And you met everyone, because there was no roads in this country. No roads. There was a little road between Kaslo and Mirror Lake, 3 miles of road there, and up on the Shutty Bench. Funnily, that was a very old road. That was put in, I don't know when, but it was a road when I got here. And that went 6 miles up to Campbell's place along there, and it came down as far as Mirror Lake on the other side. That's all. So all transportation, or if you want to go anywhere, had to go by boat. And the same with down here in Nelson. There's no one up the point. And so when you left that boat in the afternoon, at Nelson, the boat went backwards and forwards all the way up the lake, stopping at every farm. All you have to do is to stand on the beach and wave a flag, and the boat would see it and come in, pick you up. And so that was it. And I didn't come down to Nelson very much, because I was up there, and I pretty well stayed up in Kaslo.
So you were in Shutty Bench for 4 years then?
Yes, about that time, 1911 to 1915. Yes.
Did you work during that time other than clearing?
Yes, I worked on a couple of road. There's very little road. There was very, very little work in this country. Though really, it was booming for fruit, and there were several. You could work in the mines. There were, I don't think, there's little logging, not very much logging. You could work in the mines, or work on construction of government roads or wharfs, or the odd farm would hire you. Apart from that, there was very little work. But however, there was a lot of road work going on, and for 2 summers I worked on the road. I put in that. I worked on just before I went to Kaslo in 1911. I went to Kaslo in the fall. I worked on that road between Queens Bay and Balfour. They put that in, and the whole crew was just of settlers, and they'd all come. Queens Bay came the year I came out. There were about 10 or 15 different outfits in Queens Bay, and none of them had any money. I mean, they just settled their farm, and they had to make a living, you see, and then nothing off the place. There was raw land. They couldn't produce anything, so they had to. Some of them had a little money, but very few. So we had a Swede foreman called Augustine. He was from Kaslo, and the rest were all the settlers, all the fellows. And then later on, one summer, I worked they ran a road up to the Utica mine, which is up behind Kaslo, from South Fork, Kaslo Creek up to the Utica mine. And I worked on that for 4 or 5 months. But apart from that, that's about all I did. And I had a little money of my own, just enough to keep by. So with that money, that just helped me out those 2 times.
How did you clear with a team of horses or getting stumps out?
We had a stump puller, which a sort of rotary thing where you went around with a cable and they pulled out the stump. I first of all blew all my stumps by dynamite. I'd worked for one job I got for a month. I worked for a chap at Queen's Bay, and he was an ex-miner, and he bought a place on Queen's Bay, and he was working, and he got a contract to clear up another man 10 acres. And I wasn't doing anything, and he said, well, I'll give you a job as assistant, you see. I got $3 a day for that. And he taught me all I knew about I didn't know anything about dynamite, but I certainly did when I was finished with him, because he was a real expert. We'd let off 20 stumps, you see, load 20 at a time, and then have a spitting fuse, and light them all down, and then hide them, and very careful to count, to see that it all went off, you see, because sometimes one missed. And if he did miss, we had to wait about half an hour before he went and go and see something, if the fuse had come out or something. So I was quite capable of doing my own work there. No, they did rather a stupid thing. Of course, it's all apples, you see. Everyone's apples. Shutty Bench had a beautiful stand of white pine. You wouldn't believe it. Practically all white pine. And would you believe it? The fellows went back and set the whole place on fire. It burnt it to get. And
this was before you bought?
Before I bought, yes. And the fire warden would go up and see a fire going, and he'd be putting it out, and by gosh, he'd start up somewhere else. And so my place was pretty well burnt off. Awful shame. Great big black stumps left in the trees. But pretty well, so that part was it wouldn't take much. So all I had to do was I simply collected all the burnt logs in piles and burnt them, you see, and then blew all my stumps out. And then I built my house in Kurt and a stable, and I had a water supply put in. And then I was just ordering my trees when the war started. And I didn't do any more, because I knew it was no good leaving it. So
Did men go in a group from Kaslo? Did you all leave on the same day?
No, they all went. A whole bunch went first, and then they started the 54th, which is a local battalion, you see. And a lot of the boys joined up with that. Especially with Colonel Kemble, who was one of the Shutty Bench neighbours. He's an very good soldier, ex-man, and they thought that now we go with him. He knows all about it, you see. And nearly all the Kaslo people that went with that on the 54th. They had a whole platoon, a company of them from around Kaslo and the Bluebell.
Had you left by then, or were you still there?
No, they left, but I was in the army, but I wasn't overseas. I didn't get overseas actually till 16.
Were you stationed in the east?
Vernon.
In Vernon.
Vernon had a big training centre, and we were there for a whole summer training. And I don't know, they were. In fact, in the end, we went. A few of us went. The battalion, they wanted to keep it another year or something, and so a few of us said we would like to go as a draft. So I went over actually as a draft, and not with any regiment. A few, about 400 or 500 of us, I think.
When did you get your commission?
And then when I was in England, I got it.
So
I was commissioned in England. Then I was a sergeant by that time, and when I got overseas, I got commissioned, and I was in France for a year. And then along came a notice that anyone who wanted to apply to go to India, the Indian Army, there were vacancies because they had a lot of casualties. And this was, I having lived in India, my father being in India, and I originally wanted to go there, you see. So I applied, and I was accepted. And so I've been in France. I was in 17. And I think it was the very end of 17 we sailed from England to India. And we never went through the Suez Canal or the Mediterranean because the submarines are so awfully bad there. that they took us all around Africa by boat, and I eventually landed in India, and I was there for 4.5 years, Indian Army, and then I came back. I could have stayed on, but mind you, I thought to myself, BC was a lovely country, and I had 3 years of heat, which cured me. I couldn't get my leave because I was never sick, and so when my leave was due in the hot weather, you see, in the peacetime soldiering in India, the troops are all in the lower part, hot country. They all have 2 months leave to get away from the heat. They all have that, but the senior officers get it first, but they all get their 2 months. And I, for 2 years, never got any, because when I was ready to go, someone was sick, or something, sort of a vacancy. So, and when you have 121 in the shade for months at a time, you know, it gets you down a little bit. And I could have stayed, I think, but I thought, no, I think they gave me quite a good gratuity because they'd taken me on for permanent force, you see. So, having kept me so late, I was getting on then, you see, I was nearly 30 years of age, and it's pretty hard to get a job at that time, you see. So, but I got a pretty good gratuity, or they gave me a pretty good gratuity, and I came back to my farm here in Shutty Bench, as I said. That's how I came back here. And I thought I'd carry on the Shutty Bench, but things had absolutely changed. It was a different country, a different people, you know.
Your brother was in the prairies, you said?
He went to the prairies, but he went overseas with me. He's in India with me too. But he went to, my brother, he went to around Winnipeg. And he didn't like the farm life. He'd like to be in the city in an office.
How did he end up with a half interest in property at Howser then?
Oh, well, because when I first went out in 1911 to board at Shutty Bench, he was in England and he came out and joined me. And we went up to Howser. How it happened? We went up to Howser one fall to shoot up the Upper Duncan to shoot ducks. This was in end of 1911, and he met this chap Angel, you see, who was there, and we stayed with him on his farm, and he liked the country so much up there that he said, I don't think I'll stay around Shutty Bench. I think I'll try to get in with this guy, you see. So Angel took a fancy to him, and he said, sure, I'd like to have you as a partner. And that's how it is. So he took a half share with him on his 10 acres.
Is there anything left of that place now?
All underwater. Every bit of it, yes. Oh, way under. It's on the flat. It was called the flat, and it was only just above the level of the lake. So you can imagine it's about 80 feet under.
Did it flood in the spring?
Oh, no, we were just above the flood area. About another 3 or 4 feet it would have. No, it never actually flooded, but it was just nice like that.
Who was this fellow, T.J. Ainsworth? Where was he from, and who was he?
He was from England, and he'd been in the army, and he's invalided out. He'd been to Sierra Leone. That's a white man's grave, you know, in those days. It's an awful country around Sierra Leone, and he'd come out to Canada. He came out in about 1909, and he got settled out there. And he's one of the original. I wasn't the original Howser people. I came in, as I say, after the war. The original bunch was there before the war. There were 3 Hinkses. There were 2 army men, 1 naval man, the Hinks, and there were 2 Matthew brothers. They were very good fellows. They were sons of some big farmer in Ontario. And they were young fellows, you know, and they thought, well, we'd leave Ontario and come out, and they had a lovely place out there. And there were various other people around there, like that. And so that's how my brother got to get in there. See, otherwise, that's it. What now? Of course, yes, that was it. Now there's Argent. I knew Coleman, and I knew Gallus, Johnny Gallus, and of course some of the what's the family now? The Southwicks, of course. I saw my on land the other day. It was one of the Southwicks. I had a piece at Howser there on the Lardeau Valley. I had 30 acres there, and he bought it from me last fall.
Well, how did you know? Was it Alfred Coleman, was it? How would you come to know him in Argenta if you were?
He used to be postmaster there. He was postmaster at Argenta, and I used to go, go around. In the old days, we had quite a social gathering. They'd have dances. 1 week they'd have it at Argenta, then next they'd have it at Lardeau, sometimes at Howser, and even down at Johnson's Landing. Mm-hmm. And we'd get somehow, we'd have that by that time the CPR, this was getting on in the 30s, you see. The CPR, as you know, didn't run a passenger service on the train anymore because it didn't pay. They had what we call the Galloping Goose. They had a motor car, a big car, which on the track, mm-hmm. and a couple of trailers behind it, and they looked after the passenger service with that thing. On Saturdays. We only had a Saturday boat once a week. The boat came out every Saturday from Kaslo, and in old days the whole of the train was on. The engine and everything was on the barge. And they got up to Lardeau, put all the train onto the track, did that 33 miles up to Gerard and back, and out they went. That was our weekly service.
And what was paying then? What was the freight?
Well, that was it. They had freight. We had by that time there was a little logging going on. There was I think you've heard of a man called Newcomen, probably. Mm-hmm. Newcomen had charge of all that timber, but almost from Marble Quarry right up to Poplar, all up on each side. It was known as the Smith Kenner's property. Two Americans called Smith Kenner. Mm-hmm. They owned it. Kootenays Cedar Company, and they owned all the property. And Newcomen was their agent. He was looking after the property to see that they wasn't burnt in the summer. No one was poaching on that stuff, you see. Mm-hmm. And they let Newcomen have a certain amount of timber, you see. They let him have a piece of their timber, which he operated, and he ran quite a big camp. And there was 2 or 3 other jippos running small camps, and then we had our outfit at Howser. And there was a pretty good big lot of poles. The poles would go out of there. Sometimes there were 100 cars of poles a year going out that country, flat cars, you see. And then the marble quarry was working down at the marble quarry. There were 40 men working there, and they were sending out quite a bit of marble once in a while. You know, a building in Edmonton and the Winnipeg Post Office and the Nelson Courthouse. That was all built with the marble from Marble Quarry. But they found out somehow that there's some fault in it, because after several years, cracks appeared in it somehow. And they decided that it wasn't so good. The Edmonton firm that owned it. And they had very, very modern machinery there. They had polishers. They had a diamond saw for cutting it and polishing thing, and it could have been quite good, but then it didn't last long. It folded up, and it ended up with just a caretaker there, a chap called Morel. He'd just taken care of it until the Kootenays took it over just recently, that camp. And that was it. So altogether they had a certain amount of farm. They had the logging, and still there was a little mining up in the Lardeau country, way up at Ferguson and round there, and that came, a certain amount of ore came down from Gerard, that end on the train, and the logging and the marble quarry altogether. They in 1930s, the CPR wanted to pull their track up, and the Railroad Commission came in, and we all went down to Nelson, and we had Mr. Ragg, our lawyer, and we appeared in front of the commission, and we gave our account of how much timber was being shipped and marble quarry and one thing and another, and the commission decided that there was enough there to keep the railway, and they wouldn't let them take it. We stopped it. And it was only during this last war that the rail was taken up. During this last war, the CPR somehow, there was a story, they needed the steel for the war, which they didn't because the steel stayed there all the time, but they took the rails up. We were all aware there was no one there to fight it, and I think in the 40s, about 43 or 44, they took the line up, and the government took it over as a road. So that road is the old roadbed of the CPR, you see.
When you would go to Argenta for a dance, where would they have the dance? Was there a hall outside? Or?
I forget now. Argenta. They had a hall at Lardeau, and they had a hall at Johnson's Landing, and we had a hall at Howser, a school hall. Johnson's Landing, Argenta, I forget, was it a private house? What's that other family's name? Oh, I know them so well. The two boys were scalers in
the Sausage?
No, another one.
Tars,
yes. This is my wife, which could have been made exactly like the Crescent Valley. We tried, but just by irrigating, diking. It was beautiful land. There was hardly a rock on it with all that muck soil, you know, and dead flat. And it wasn't very heavy clearing, funnily enough, on the flat. There wasn't an awful lot of timber, it's more scrub stuff. But it would have made a and then the game was out of this world. When we lived at Howser, I never had a butcher shop at all. The deer and the goat and everything was plenty of deer and grouse, duck and everything around there. And the fishing in the Lardeau River, now of course it's closed, you can't fish in the Lardeau River. But I had that river as my private river because no one ever fished it, no one. And you see what we had in those days, having one train a week coming in there, we hardly had any hunters or shoot fishing because they had to come in, they had to stay a whole week. They couldn't get out again. And there were no hostels, there were nowhere to stay. Unless you happened to know of someone to stay at. But, so you either had to come up there with a tent and pitch your tent somewhere and stay, or and stay there for a week, or not. So the result was we had very few people like that, you see, who went there for some business, you see. Oh yes, that was it. No, it was a great pity when you have it. No, in 1927, my partner and myself, we were logging was good. During the Depression, you've heard about the big Depression all over Canada, where people on the prairie were starving, there was no work. They didn't know there was such a thing in the Lardeau Valley. There was no one. There was no one on relief. Everyone had a job, work. When we were running our camp, we were paying men. Our cutters were making around $18 a day. When the prairies, you were glad to get 50 cents a day. You were lucky. But that was, it just happened to be a little pocket, you see, where things were fine. There was.
You could still find a market for your wood.
Poles were a good price, funnily enough, and fur, believe it or not. Martin were worth more money than we're today.
Hospitality at the time that we had no remittance men in Howser.
No, I told him that.
Because they were all quite glad.
No, they were all decent fellows. Mind you, I don't think the remittance men were bad. Some of them were quite nice chaps, but they they kicked over the traces and had to, lift. But these chaps weren't. They were that type. They were old elder men, had their own money. They were. But people, you see, don't know. When they said, "Oh," and now, for instance, someone accused me of one. Why? This I'll tell you a story because it's very stupid. When I went to Kaslo, I came out here. I hadn't sent because I was, as you say, put with a guardian till I was 21, and I had to stay with him. All right, and if I left him, all right, that's the way of holding me there, you see. However, I decided I could get a job, and I was lucky. I got out of that, and I worked for a job. Now, when my father died 10 years before that, and my mother, and he'd left me a little money. But being a kid, of course, I couldn't handle it. It was handled by my guardians. But when I came at 21, I was allowed to have the interest on when there was a little capital. I was allowed the interest. But my father's will said that on 21 I could have the interest, and I couldn't touch the capital at 25 years of age. That was the will. But when I came 21, I could get my capital. See, and it brought me in, not very much, very low interest in England, They brought me in about, something about $60 a month, which is big in those days. It was equivalent to about $200 or $300 now.
Mm-hmm.
So that was it, you see. My remittance came every month to the bank from England. Remittance man, see, right away. People who didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
But it's my own money. And no remittance sent by anyone else. It's my own interest and my own money coming in. So that's why people got an impression. There's only two men in this country who had no money of their own, but the family sent them somewhere to keep them away from home.
Mm-hmm.
And there were two in this country, and I won't mention names, but there were two. But of all the people that were here, that was all. There were people, the fellows. Most of the settlers in this country were retired men, naval men, army men, all that sort of thing. They didn't know what to do. You didn't get much of a pension of your army, but if you could have a nice way of living and a little money beside, good. And it had an opportunity for it. And that's it. But so that's why I was so annoyed when I saw this book saying there's a bunch of remittance men in Howser who started. I knew them all, but I wasn't much. As I say, I wasn't an original Howser. I came in after the war.
Mm-hmm.
But these chaps were there before the war, and they do it. No, it'll boil in a minute, not quite yet. Now, shall I turn that noise off, perhaps? It's very good.
Why don't we...
And I went out fishing, and I came back after 2 hours. I had 97 pounds of dolly varden.
Wow. And did you can it or dry it?
Oh, yeah, canned it. I used to can lots. But this particular time I didn't. I had 4 16-pounders and a lot of 10s and 12s, I caught them. And that was it. But my camp, what I did that day was my camp, it was getting on, I think it was in the 30s, 28, about 1928, and we'd stopped logging, we'd logged most of it, but all we had left, now help yourself to this, was cottonwood. It had lots of very good stand of cottonwood on it, and there was no market for it to help us to and some bread there for it. And there was no sale for cotton, but so it was all standing there. But there was a chap called DeVort who started veneer works in Nelson, and of course cottonwood is what he wanted. And so we owned the timber. He said to us, "Will you take it out for you?" And said, "No, it's awfully heavy stuff to handle, cottonwood, and we only had a horse in that. So no, we don't do that. But what we will do is, we'll sell you with a stump on the stump for so much, and we'll lend you our camp, and you put your own crew in and get it out." That's what he did. He had a bunch of Swedes. There were 6 Swedes. He came up, and they had our camp. Mm-hmm. We tore and they got that cottonwood, and we paid the government $1,000 for it, and we sold it to him for $3.50 a thousand on the stump. So we made $2.50 a thousand. And would you believe it? 2 million feet in the winter.
Wow.
You know, I scaled one cottonwood log that was only 10 feet long. It had 1,100 feet in it.
Wow.
Oh, beautiful stuff. But it's just so much, and then it branches. So you wouldn't get more than 3 logs out of the base. Three short logs, three 12s or 3 10s. And that's all. Then there was nothing left all about it. And DeVort took over. He took that. And so when I got this load of catch of fish, as I've told the Swedes, oh boy, were they crazy! I left them about 4 or 5 of the big fish. No, I have to can it every fall. I go up and can about 4 dozen jars. Most beautiful fish too. Red, lovely.
Did you start logging the very first year that you went up to Howser?
When I came back, yes, from the war.
In 1922.
22. Late in the fall, because it took We had to apply for the timber and had to, and we didn't get it till fairly late. We just had time to build our cabin in the fall. Yes, we started, but we really didn't get going till 1923.
Who were you selling the poles to?
There was an outfit called Lindsay Brothers, who came from Spokane, I think, and in those days, nearly all our poles went right down to Minneapolis. And one winter, we had, just showed you in those days, you could make money on a small logging venture, which today I doubt if you could, because today they want so much modern machinery and stuff. Before you start, you've got a bill for $100,000 before you know it.
Mm-hmm.
But in our days, there was horses, and we had cutters. We had 3 cutters, 2 men working together and another man on his own. We had a teamster and a swamper and a cook and myself and my partner. That was our crew, 7. And just nice, you see. Well, we paid the cutters by the piece, so much a piece for the poles, and hauled it out for the piece too. So we knew exactly where we were getting off at. Now, just to show you, I don't know what a 60-foot pole is worth now, but I think it's worth probably very nearly $1 a foot. In those days, we got $16 loaded on flat cars. Haul them, cut them, haul them, and load them on the flat car.
And these, how long would these be?
You want?
These would be 60-foot poles?
That's the biggest we cut, 60s. 60 down, 60s, 40s, 50s, 20, 35s, 30s. 30s are the smallest. But our 60s, we had more 60s than anything.
So these were all hand cut with a cross-cut saw by hand?
Oh, hand cut, yes. And peeled by hand. Nowadays, you see, apparently they don't bother to peel them. So cut them the right length, and then they go and they peel them by machinery. But in those days, and something else you see has changed. Everything's changed now. They'll take poles any time of the year now. No, not in our country. They wouldn't take a pole after 1st of April. And you couldn't get them, they couldn't cut them again till about the 15th of September or the 16th of September, because that was the sapwood running, you see. In the spring, cedar, you can take the peel off a cedar like that and rip it right off. Didn't make a good pole. They checked too badly. You had to have a winter cut. So our contract read that we mustn't cut any poles before the 1st of April, after the 1st of April, and then start again in September. Winter cut.
Would you cut pine then for Nelson in the
Yeah,
summer?
we cut some pine then.
So that must have been a slack time.
Well, in the summer I never logged at all.
What did you do?
Huh? In those days I had my holidays. I'd leave the country because what happened if you went, they'd be on fighting fire all summer, because the fires are something terrific in those days, the lightning. I was honorary fire warden because running a camp, they made you an honorary fire warden. If I saw a fire start, I could get a bunch of men on my own and take them out and get some stores, and then the rangers come along and you see them, and then you take over from it. And so that's really the reason. If we'd run our camp in the summer, what would happen? We'd have a camp running nicely, fire started. They shut you down, take the whole crew. Well, and they'd never compensate you. You see, you'd have meat on hand and stuff. Well, you had to throw that away. And you had to get, starting up again, you'll lose a certain amount of money, you see, because it's, till it gets running smoothly, everything, you have to have certain expenses, getting stuff in a hurry and getting re-established and getting the men to start to work again. So we decided, no, sir. End of April, we generally did our loading in April. No more cutting, but loading. They were all on the siding. And as soon as the loading was over, we shut the camp till September.
And you'd leave the Kootenays?
Oh no, I was down Nelson. I used to come down and go stay there and fish and go up to Gerard and that. Because the mosquitoes, you know, are not so very good in that country. And so there's nothing to do. So that's what I did. And then came back in the fall. When we took our trap line over at Glacier Creek, here, help yourself, please. When we had a trap line, of course we'd go up Glacier in the summer, go right up the creek and get the cabins built and the road done. See, it's nice up there, and there are very few flies up there. Not mosquitoes would stop about 7 or 8 miles up the creek, they'd die off, there'd be very few. But when we were logging, as I say, I got tied in one year, when two whole summers, I never got out at all. One fire after another. And I was in charge of them, most of the foremen and fires. Well, I had one big glacier fire, and I had 100 men on it.
But they'd use horses fighting fires?
Everyone?
They'd use horses to make fire breaks, clearing...
Oh yes, I had 3 miles of guard in that big fire. And, I put that fire out, and not a drop of rain. It took me a month, but we had, as I say, 3 or 4 miles of guard. And a bit of luck. No wind got up.
Did you own your own horses? Were they your own?
Oh yes, we had our own team. But we used to hire a team as well. I had 2 teams when I was working in the We had our own team and a hired team.
Where did you pasture them? Did you have a clearing at your place in Howser?
A farm. That's what it turned into. That's all we had the whole, the 30 acres there, you see. We had 20 acres of hayfield. So we cut the hay for the horses in the winter, and also pastured and turned them loose in the summer in there. So that was kind of handy, you see.
Did your partner, Mr. Ainsworth, stay with you all the time?
He and I were together for quite a few years, but he didn't. I used to go out for a trip, but he didn't. He stayed. He was more or less, you know. And he didn't. Yeah, have some more of this. And he wouldn't go out. He'd stay in his house at Howser. And I'd go out.
You were telling me about Healy's Landing.
Oh, yes. Haley, they started, I don't know when. In early days, they actually ran a paddle steamer up to his place, you know. The old Argenta, what was called the Argenta. Small paddle steamer, and it would go up once a week right up to Haley's Landing. From the main Kootenay Lake, they used to go up the Lardeau River to Howser, and there were 2 rapids. That's the Glacier Creek Rapids and the Cooper Creek Rapids. The only way they could get through it was too rough for them. What they had was, they had a stump, they had a big tree up there and a long cable. And when they got to the foot of the rapids, they put the cable on their winch and winched themselves up through the rapids, you see, on those rapids. And then, of course, they'd go up Howser Lake fine. And they made the upper river because it isn't bad. There's no real rapids as bad. It's running quite swift, but no rapids real like that. So you can make Haley's Landing pretty easily.
And what was there at Haley's Landing?
He just had this log hotel. He had a small hotel there, and he brought his niece from out from Ireland, Maud, to join him. She joined him in I think she came out to Howser in 1908, and she was there. And she cooked for him and kept the place, you see, and he ran the horses. And people would come up in the boat, and he'd put them up and feed them, and have a room for them, and then next day take them up the valley with his pack train.
Would they be mostly miners?
Miners, and there were quite a few timber timber cruisers in that day.
Why?
And once,
Why were there a lot of timber cruisers up there?
looking out for trying to get stands of timber for their companies, you see.
Were they mostly companies operating out of Nelson, or?
Yes, chiefly. Winlow, a chap called Winlow had a lot of claims right above Haley's Landing on the upper river. And up Hall Creek, which is a creek just above Haley, 12 miles above Haley's, there were 4 mines up at the head of Hall Creek. There was a chap called Huey McKay had a claim called the Red Elephant, and he used to have supplies, and there was the Bannockburn up there too. And they were operating for a small while, and then he'd have a government road crew cleaning out all the windfalls every year, working for about 2 months up the Duncan, and he packed them in and kept them supplied with stuff too. About 8 men.
Did he have a large pasture cleared for his horses, or did they have to bring them
It's a big meadow, natural meadows around there, around his place. He cut the wild hay and had them in barns, but in the summer they just grazed around the place in these meadows.
How long did he keep going for? When did he stop?
About in the 30s it seemed to ease off, and he left Howser. He's getting old. He left Howser around 36 or 37, 1936. Went to an old man's home, and Maud came down. They shut his camp up there. But he went in there. I think about 19. Yeah, have another piece. I got some more. I think he went in there in 1905. I'm not sure. It was something like 4 or 5 when he went first. And he was there alone for a while. Maud joined him in 1908. And there's a funny thing. He even had a license to sell liquor up there. And when Maud came there, Maud told me this story. He said, "Maud, go in the bar, and you'll see a big barrel there, full of sawdust. You can have whatever's in it, because in those days, miners, if they got a drink, if they had any change, like dimes and quarters or anything, into the barrel, didn't bother with it." And Maud got over $80 in dimes and quarters out of that barrel. That just shows you what happened those days.
The boom was over by the time you came there, but there were still a lot of miners.
That's it. But the real boom was over. You see, you've heard the old grade that ran up from Argenta to Howser. The Great Northern and the CPR both were racing to get into that country. And they each had a big crew of men. The Great Northern had a crew and the CPR had a crew. The Great Northern came out, they built this old grade. It's raised up. It was raised up about the height of this room, all the way through the flats. From Argenta right up, and then at the foot of Howser Lake there was a trestle, where they had a trestle bridge across there. And that was the CPR, and the Great Northern ran up where part of the Argenta Road was right towards Hamel Creek. That was the old grade, some of it. And it came right up to that side, and the CPR beat the Great Northern to it. They got there first, so the Great Northern quit, and the CPR went to Howser, and Bill Simpson, the storekeeper, just showed you how things changed. The CPR offered him $50,000 for Howser town site. And he thought it was going to be worth millions. And no, he couldn't sell it to that. So CPR pulled out, and when he left, he didn't get a damn bean for it. He let it go. That happened in this country a lot, back in the CPR, because they had that. If you'd go in with them, you were made. So that was that old grade has to go down. It's lovely where it's all banked up there through that flat. A good place for hunting, lots of grouse and duck and duck.
Did you know about that happening when you were down and working at the pilot?
No, I only learned that after. No one seemed to know. You wouldn't, unless you delved into it, you wouldn't get it. No one seemed to know the old history of the thing. You see, Powell Bay itself was an old smelter city. Mm-hmm. When I went to Powell Bay first, these people that had the farm 3 miles down below Powell Bay on the shore, I forget the name of the company. It was company that owned it, Victoria, down at the coast. And one of the partners' brother who owned the farm here. So what they did was, they said to him, all right, Pilot Bay is all our property, and it's all townside. We'll let you graze your cattle into that townside, and you can just look after the property. Company's credit, and the result was, for years, they only got the low-grade lumber, and of course that they couldn't make that go, and that there was padded payrolls. There was all kinds of guys round the upper ladder there who were on the payroll and didn't do a damn tap. Mm. They were given a salary, and they handed half of it over to the foreman, you see, and they took the other half, and they never did a thing, and so that broke the company. But if it had been looked after, they had the most beautiful timber, and as I say, they were up to date in every way. But unfortunately. Now, would you like another piece of bread and butter?
That's fine, thanks.
Well, this is my own manufacture.
Thank you.
Of shortbread.
So, just now that the tape's running on, this mill was at Gerard.
Gibbon?
Now that the tape's running, I just wanted to ask you again about the Gerard.
Yes.
There was what was the name of the firm?
Forest Mills.
And it was a British firm?
Yes.
When did they build it?
Oh, I don't know. It was running before the First World War. Mm-hmm. Because I remember they had a lot of these East Indians working on there. The Hindus, they had. I remember them. They were the first men to enlist. They were all reservists in the Indian Army, and they all left for that. That was before the First World War.
And they all came down to Kaslo to go off to...
Yes, they all went away. But they had a manager, an assistant manager, and a big crew of men there before the war.
Was it common for East Indian people to work in the sawmills in the Lardeau? Was it common that the laborers were East Indian?
Well, no, but there were a lot of them all over. There was a smattering of them all through all the mills. They seemed to take that work up. Mm. All the mills of the coast had them too. Not actually millwrights, more or less handling the lumber, and that's what the company. And there were quite a few people there. There was a very nice little hotel at Gerard. Jack Pershing kept it. I knew him very well, and I stayed up there too. And they had also a little boat called the SS Proctor that ran on Trout Lake. Hmm. And they'd come down from Trout Lake City and meet the train at Gerard every day. That's complete, you see, because in those days there were still quite a few mining going on in the upper Larder around Ferguson. The Cromwell, the Nettie Ale, mm-hmm. The Ruth Hope, and a few things like that up right around Ferguson. They were still operating.
Even in the 20s, was there still a sense that something might happen, that it might open up?
Still, that, yes, so there was a lot of that still.
But you didn't prospect?
No, I never did. I wish I did a little more, because I could have made it rich, I think, because I missed the boat. Because a chap called Jack Rady, and he had some claims right opposite Howser. Howser, I don't know, Howser was very funny. Howser had a South Bay and a North Bay. Mm-hmm. And these two bays almost joined, but they didn't. There's a quarter of a mile of land. Mm-hmm. So this big piece was almost an island, not quite. And the Matthew brothers lived on this island, the two boys I told you, in the east. They had a lovely farm up there. Mm-hmm. And on this property, this Jack Rady had a thing called claim, silver lead. And I saw it, and you could see the stain of the red all over the... just since not very far long ago, in 1952, the Kennecott people from the States had some, I don't know how they got hold of me. Some chap said, if you want a man who knows the country, Harrison's been up for years. So they contacted me and they said, will you take us on a crew of men for us for the summer and open up some of the old trails because we want our prospects to go and do it. So I took that job on and I had 7 men. Mm-hmm. Very good. They call themselves the Kenco Explorations. In Vancouver they had the office. Mm-hmm. And they gave me pack horses, gasoline operated drill for drilling rocks, a power saw and the whole thing. And I had 8 or 9 men. And I said to the chap in Vancouver, he said, now, Harrison, he said, I want you to open up the country. Now, first of all, get that main Duncan Trail open. So out at Howser, you know, the trail used to go up Howser Lake and up to the Duncan, but it's only a trail. It hadn't been open for years. So I want you to open that up. So I did that. I started right at Howser, and we cut out the brush and cut it right up to the Duncan. I got up as far as Howser Creek in those days. And then they sent me up Glacier Creek because they thought that was a good place. And it was a snap for me because of my trap ground. Mm-hmm. I want that cleaned out, please. So I took my crew up and I cleaned that trail right to my top cabin, just like a roadway, you know. And had all these chaps for the summer. Mm-hmm. And so that was they thought there was a lot of milling in this country, and they wanted all these open up so they could get in with horses and pack and prospectors and have it thoroughly first. Well, now here was I, and the company said to me, he said, Harrison, if you know of any properties in that country or anything, go and stake it for us, and we go 50-50 with you. And damn, here's Rady across the way. I never took a man to do it. And what happened? One of the local men, a little chap called Joe Gallo, you probably heard his name, have you? Joe Gallo.
No.
He was a mining promoter and he'd done a lot of them. He came through and he jumped, he staked all this property that I knew of, mm-hmm. and sold it to consolidate for $100,000. And I could have had that just as easy as that. So that was it. I enjoyed myself because I had this nice crew. We cleaned that trail right up to as far as Howser Creek, and the Duncan. Then they closed down. It was all summer. I had this crew.
There was a road up Hamel Creek too, wasn't there?
There was a trail up Hamel Creek. Mm-hmm. Never rode, but the bad part of Hamel Creek is this: you had to keep on crossing the creek. Mm-hmm. They had I don't know how many bridges to get to the top. Glacier Creek. One bridge. You can go up all up on the north side of the creek, the whole way up, till you get near the top where you have to cross it. Mm-hmm. But Hamel, nothing. You go and then you're stuck to a rock bluff. You have to go across and go up there and then cross over again and cross over again. And to maintain all those bridges, that's why it would have been a lot easier. You know that before the Governor General, when was it? Who's the General? This is in my time. He was going to make that trip over the summit into Earl Grey. And they built a most elaborate cabin for him at the head. Oh, beautiful cabin. And all the chairs and he made out of the woods and everything. And he stayed there one night.
Have you ever stayed there at that cabin?
Mm-hmm.
Did you camp?
I never saw it, but it's on the summit. Mm-hmm. And they kept the trail. The trail was really open there. But I've never been up... I've only been about 5 or 6 miles up Hamel.
There were mines up there, weren't there?
Mm. Oh yes, the Argenta mine, one thing. And who had that? Someone's got that mine now, I think.
Hanson.
Yes.
There was also a man named Hanna in the area.
Oh, I knew Hanna very well. Yes.
Could you tell me a little bit about him?
Well, he was a mining man and a contractor. Did contracting mining. And here's a story about him that you'll be very pleased. He had a boy working for him, Damn, I wish I could tell you his name now. He ran a hotel. His father ran a small hotel in Kaslo, this boy. And he worked for Hannah. Well, sir, he picked out, he was kind of mining. Just before the Second World War, this boy went to the Philippines. Got a job in some mines there. When the Japs took over the Philippines, this chap, well, I'll tell you, I'll get his name in a minute. This chap didn't give in to the Japs. He joined a bunch of wild Indians there called Igorots. They lived in trees and they didn't, had no villages. They were a pretty tough outfit. However, he joined them and they took him on and he organized them and helped them. And the Japs never got him. The whole of the war, they never got them. And they raised hell with the Japs. They'd come down at night and raid them and kill a whole bunch and go up in the hills. And the Japs would go up into timber. There were no villages, up in trees. They lost a lot of men and came back, they could never get hold of them because they were all scattered, you see. And I had them in my tip of my tongue then. And what happened was, when the war was over, the American government was so pleased with what this boy did. He'd done a hell of a, he'd given that they gave him the Purple Heart, Order of the Purple Heart, and paid him wages as a captain for the whole war in a lump sum. Oh gosh, no.
And then he came back to Kaslo?
Yes, he's back here. I don't know what he's doing now, but he's quite he was famous for that. And he was a boy at Argenta.
Not one of the tars.
No. My wife will know it. I know it. I'll know it in a minute. Yes, anyway, he did that. He did a wonderful job.
Anyway, you were going to tell me a little bit about Hannah.
Yes, Hannah. He was around Kaslo, and he did that sort of thing. Took on government contract, did a little logging and that sort of thing. You see, and talking about logging, we had a bridge. I don't know if you know, it's called the Cannings Bridge, just below Howser, where the Duncan came into Howser Lake, the bottom of that Howser. They had a bridge across to get across to us, you see, and that was put in, in 1907. An extraordinary thing, a bridge like that cost probably $30,000-$40,000. Was put about the whole of that Howser bunch were very strong conservatives, the whole lot, and somehow they had enough pull. They put that enormous bridge in just for those few people. But of course, it opened up the country on the other side. Of course, so when I came, this Canning Bridge was there. In 1930, we were still logging. All the piling stuff had got a little rotten. So they had to redo it. So they had to have a contract to supply for piling. And we put in our bid. Hannah was another fan who put his bid in. But unfortunate for Hannah, he had his timber down to Argenta and had to bring it up 12 miles to deliver it. We had a limit right alongside the bridge. So of course we could knock anyone on a contract. And so we got the contract. Instead of fir, they decided to make cedar piling, which is they don't generally have because cedar won't drive well. When the pile driver comes, it splits, and they did. However, they did it, and we supplied them. They had to have from 60, a lot of 60s for the main piece, and the strut 4 all the way down till where it landed on the bed. There were 20s. 30s, 40s, 50s, so on up the spans. I think it's about 200 pilings, and boy, that's the easiest money I've ever made in my life. Because we delivered the stuff. It's only about half a mile haul, you see. We hauled it in on the road, right to the bridge, and I and my partner took in turns. We'd have 6 big pilings in the river, you see, and we'd have a rowboat. And we'd tow up 6, and I could do it in an hour, It was a mile and a half down the river. Just took us an hour to deliver 6 pilings to them, tied them up, and the rest were hauled in by the team. So we made quite a lot, and they redid the timber. That was in 1933, I think, 32 or 33. Yes.
How many people lived in Howser then?
Yes, there were quite a few people there.
100 people? Or?
Oh no, I should say about 30.
Do you recall a man from Kaslo named Buchanan? George Buchanan?
Yes, he was a little bit before my time. He owned a lot of property around. Yes, I know him well by name, but I never contacted him actually.
There was some quite early logging up in that area too, wasn't there, back in the 1890s and where you were?
I suppose there was. I didn't see much of it, not because the timber we got on was pretty nearly virgin, except where the CPR cut down the trees along the track for their ties and stuff like that. There was very little cutting going on there. I think it's probably in the lower part of the valley, around Argenta and Cooper Creek, they may have done a little bit, but they didn't get up as far as Howser. And round Trout Lake, where they had the mill, they were logging on Trout Lake quite early, of course, for the forest mill for them. They were doing a lot of logging on Trout Lake, but that was up there. Yes. No, it was chiefly, there were chiefly trappers. There was Earl Stevens and 5, 6, 7. I knew them all of them, all the old timers. There were about, there was a storekeeper, and there were about 20, 25, 30, about 30 people, with the settlers just round it, about 30 people.
There was a native fellow who lived in Howser?
Yes, half-breed Indian. His family came from Michigan, and he's a fellow called Earl Stevens. And his old father came with him many years ago, but his father had gone before I remember. I knew Earl very well. Earl had the trap line up the Upper Duncan from Haley's Landing, from Hall Creek, that's 12 miles above Haley's. Hall Creek, he had all the North Fork of the Duncan and the West Fork of the Duncan, all that was his. And he was a very nice chap. I knew Earl very well. He was there for a long, long time. He died in the late 30s, around 37 or 38, something like that. Yes, he was a man. And another interesting thing was when the CPR and the Great Northern were doing all the construction up the valley from Argenta coming towards Howser. They had a big lot of crew there. They had big crews there, and of course had local people helping. And there's an old character, you've probably heard of him. You've heard of Potato Charlie, have you? Charlie Hendrickson, his real name was. Hendrickson. And he was called Potato Charlie because right there at Howser, on the that house at Canning's, on the Duncan there, he had 2 acres of potatoes. And he supplied the camps with potatoes. And that's why he was called his. And later on, he worked for Hinkson somewhere, and he had some claims on the just short of Argenta, on that hill between Glacier Creek and Hamel Creek. He had some claims there, and this was Charlie Hendrickson. That was him. Oh, there's some 2 or 3 quite wonderful characters there. He was quite.
A fellow named Red McLeod.
Oh yes, Red. Oh gosh, you ought to. Red is the most famous character in this country, you know. You know, he was in East Kootenay, in the old days, that's where he was, in East Kootenay. He's a big Scotsman, came from Nova Scotia originally, and he lived in East Kootenay, and his chief work was stealing horses. He used to go over to Montana and get a bunch of horses, and they were after him. He always made the border before they could get him. Never caught him, but he stopped. And then he'd get a bunch from here, and he'd do a little bit here. Now, I met Red. He was, when I came to Lardeau, he was, Red had was quite a big, husky, red-headed fellow, very nice chap in a way, but he was, when he got drunk, he was very mean. One of the mean guys. And apparently, one day in Nelson, in the old Bodega saloon, he used to go hang round that, and he'd get hold of a chap, and he'd kind of roughhouse him to get him a drink. He threatened him, you better give me a drink, I'll knock the block off you. That sort of thing. He got a little bit of that. And a little fellow called, I forget his name now, but anyway, he had enough of this. And one day Red started this on the bar with him, and boys, if he didn't pick up the ice axe, the ice pick, and whang Red a great crack on the head. And that did something to his brain. He was a very sick man. He went down to Essendale. It made him not crazy for a while. But the doctor, he was there for about a year, and the doctor took a great interest in him and raised the skull again and made him all right, except that he was just a little bit on the right, on the left side. He wasn't quite the man he was. It's a little bit of a, he wasn't paralyzed, but not the same feeling. And Red came back, and we met him at Howser. And he lived on White's Ranch, down halfway between Argenta and Howser. And to tell you a story about Red, you know why in Eastwood, this is a good story about you all hear it. He was in Eastwood, during this time he was in East Kootenay doing these things. And he'd been in jail lots of times for small offences. He only did a little stealing when he was half tight. And he was this sort of a man. If he saw you had a lot of blankets and he might go and take one, and he knew you didn't have any, he'd go and take and give you one. That type. And the only tip was tight. He was ordinarily was all right. And this happened. He got into trouble somewhere in East Kootenay, and they put him in jail in Cranbrook. And they hadn't got enough evidence to do much with him, so they did a rather mean thing. They left the door open, or half ajar. And of course, Red beat jail right away. He was way gone. Then they found him, then had him up for breaking jail, you see. And he went to his brother in East Kootenay, and they sent a policeman and an Indian guide to catch him. And they caught up with him up the valley somewhere near Bugaboo Creek, around that country. And they said, Red, come on with us, Red, come on. Red all went down the road together. And they came to this little creek, a little creek which had a road going up it and a bank. And Red wheeled his horse up there, and out came his 30-30 rifle. Tatar boys, see, and he had the rifle, and they just left him. And that's called Tatar Creek to this day. from that thing of Red. And that was to give you an idea of the man. When I came to Kaslo, he was a regular bugbear. The women used to say, if you're bad, my Jimmy, Red will get you. When Red came to town, everyone took damn good care that their chicken house was well guarded, because he was an awful man for raiding chicken houses. And, getting tight. So that was well. I liked him. I knew him awfully well. But so I was in charge of a fire at Howser Creek, at Poplar Creek, one summer, and Red got the job of taking supplies up to the camp, see. And a friend of mine, there's a family called Brandon. You've probably heard of them, haven't you?
No.
Mrs. Brandon, they lived at Gerard, and there were 3 boys. And I used to get these chaps. They were not very well off, and I'd try to get these Brandon boys a job, you see. They were in their teens, and I'd get them as water carriers or helping, the cook, or do odd jobs. And I had one of the Brandon boys helping Red McLeod with the stuff, you see, packing it up from the store to the camp. And Jimmy came to me, the boy, he said, James, you know what Red's doing? No, I said, no. Why, he's going up a side trail before we get to camp, and he's got a great big hollow cedar tree there, cedar stump, and he's got it full of food. He's got all kinds of bacon and things. He takes a load up, and puts a lot of it into the cache and takes the rest up to camp. And we had a little Irish cook called Paddy who couldn't read or write. And so whatever Red gave him, he'd say, oh, it's fine. We got it. And so there's no... And so I heard this story, so I rang up the ranger. She said, Jimmy, a chap called Jimmy Robinson. I said, Jimmy, there's something going on here. That Red's got a big cache of our food somewhere. Oh, well, we go up to see, and Jimmy took us to it. Jimmy Brand took us to it, but it was empty. Take it. So anyway, they took it down to Poplar, and we were after him. Do you know what Red had the gall to do? He took all that food. He had sides of bacon, whole cans of meat, cases of milk. Oh, I had a lovely supply from him. He went to the forestry man who was running the speeder. We had a gas speeder on the track. We were allowed to run. He went to the forestry man and said, say, would you take my stuff down for me to Lardeau? He loaded the stuff which rolled from the forestry on their car, and they took it down to Lardeau for him. And they were after him. They knew he had it, but and then he got to Lardeau. What happened was he took it there and rode it over to Argenta and must have hid it in the bush somewhere, see. The policeman came up and said, well, no, Red did a stupid thing. He had a six-shooter on him without a license, and the policeman saw it, put him in jail. And while he was in jail, we hunted the whole goddamn country to see if we could find that cache. And unfortunately for Red, in our hunt, we were going up the Argenta Road, somewhere near Hamel Creek. Someone saw a piece of paper fluttering up on the hillside, and here was all the cache under a big log. And if it hadn't been for the paper, we'd never found it. So then we found it all. Red got 6 months. He didn't mind it. But that didn't bother him at all. And that was Red McLeod. He was a very famous character. He died. He died just about the Second World War, just about that time. But he is one of the characters of this country.
And he lived in the cabin?
Just beside the road, just down by Argenta. Yes, that was where he eventually ended up.
Who were the Whites? You mentioned the Whites Ranch halfway between Argenta and...
Yes, the Whites Ranch. He's a Kaslo man, and he had a farm, a big meadow. He ditched it all. Mm-hmm. Drained it all, and he had a cattle ranch there. I don't know how it would be, about 4 miles below Howser. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the road dipped into a flat and went along it, but you wouldn't know it because it flooded. And that section of the road was all floating. They had to bring in full-size logs, about 20 feet long, and there were solid logs, and they built the road on top of that, you see, because it was marsh and it was bottomless practically, so swamp. Mm. And Whites had this ranch there, and Red got into they'd left it. For years they ran it, and they lost it. But and Red burnt it down by accident. He was in there, and I suppose he got taken, and he burnt that. Then he came to Howser, and he got another vacant cabin round Howser, belonging to a man who'd been there before the war and was killed in the war, and he burnt that down. Mm. Red hot, just talking good. And so then he ended up down to Argenta.
Huh. Well, it sounds like quite a character.
Oh, he was. But he was very good to us, because he's a first rate. What the man didn't know about horse flesh wasn't worth knowing. So, he knew a horse. He could tell you in a minute if it was a good horse or not, and how old it was and everything about it. So my partner, when we had a nice team of horses, wanted, Red, would you do us a favour? Sure. Will you look over this horse and see what you think of it? We're going to buy it. And he gave him a good look. Oh, he said, pretty good horse. I think, yes, I'd take that. It's a good buy. Mm-hmm. So he was useful for that. But I liked him. I got on fine with him that way. But so he told us it's okay, and we got a very fine team out of it. Mm. But yes, that was it. Mm. Yes, he was one of the characters of the country, with Mr. Red McLeod. Oh yes, it was. Some very funny things happened, you know. The CPR, when they had, we called it the Galloping Goose, it was an old Packard car that the superintendent of the railway used to travel on somewhere. See, and they had these little flange wheels for a track, and they had these two little, well, I suppose it was like the section foreman had to run, put his tools on. We had to drag that behind it for the tools, it's in the luggage, and that was it. And we had some very funny experiences there. One day the man who ran it, several people, Jack Pershing ran it for a while, and then he left it and someone else did. And Bud Thompson, our storekeeper, took it on for a while. And I don't know what's the matter with him, but bringing the people up from the boat one Saturday, when he got to our bridge, just below there on the Lardeau, I have to cross that bridge, there was a mule got onto the bridge and had fallen down through the ties in the middle of the bridge, you see, like that, and he couldn't, of course, he was stuck there, see, and damn it, he must have been asleep or something, but he ran right on top of the horse. And the thing was teetering like this, you see, with a whole lot of people, and they were nervous, and there were just the ties and nothing between them, and eventually they got the people off, see, and we had to go down and got them in, and we had to go down, a bunch of us had to go down. We had to shoot the horse because it was badly hurt, and then get it off the track and get the thing back on the track. That was one little episode. Another time, what the CPR did was they gave whoever was running it, contract, he had to charge only the CPR fares on Saturday. You see, whatever, 50 cents to house or whatever it was, and so much of freight. Another time, what the CPR did was they gave whoever was running it, contract, he had to charge only the CPR fares on Saturday. You see, whatever, 50 cents to house or whatever it was, and so much of freight, whatever the CPR charged. But in the weekday, when there was no service, and if you or I or anyone wanted a special trip, well, then we made our own arrangements with the man. He could charge just do what you like. But on scheduled trips, you had to have the scheduled price.
Which he couldn't make money at, I guess. It was too little money.
No, not. Well, I don't know. I don't think so. They got the odd trip with people. And when we had the Argento once, no, it was Johnson's Landing, we hired it, and a whole bunch of us around Howser and all that went down with it to the Lardeau scene and came back. And I remember so well, it being a little side track, the grass was growing high on the line, so all round the wheel. And by gosh, we smelled fire. We were going about halfway down to Argento, to our Lardeau, and my gosh, you know, sir, all this wild hay got in on the wheels, and it caught fire. And we got out, and I and my wife were sitting in there right on the gas tank. Well, we jumped all out. We all jumped out and put the fire out and went on. But there were flames all around it. They got, oh boy, it was bad. Just because it was the way the track was, you see. So that was those funny little things that happen all the time. Oh, yes.
Do you remember the railway station at Lardeau?
Yes, I do.
There's not much left of it. I wonder what it used to look like and how the railway was set up there, what kind of buildings they had.
Oh, they had a roundhouse. At one time, a roundhouse where they had the engine. And at one time, the crew used to stay there all the time. Argento or Howser. I think they were not Howser. I mean, Gerard. They used to live at Gerard. And the engineer built a house up there. And the station at Lardeau was quite nice. The station agent had his...
You said that the upstairs was a house?
Yeah, well, here. Yes, the station agent had his family up there, upstairs. He had quarters, nice quarters.
And he had a family?
Yes. Well, so we had several. We had on the average, they changed about every 3 years. While that was operating, we must have had 5 different agents.
Brandon was the first man. This was a family that was here. And then quite a few people came, one after another. We had them there. And they'd get you, if you wanted flat cars for loading, you see, up the valley, they'd get them for you. And they'd meet the boat and get all the freight and express and stuff. And as I say, the engine one time stayed there. That in early days, I believe in the, just before my time, just about the time of the First World War, they actually ran 3 trains a week up on that line. I had 3 trains a week, but they cut it down to 1 when I came back after the war. There was 1 train a week on Saturday. But in the early days there were 3. And there were a lot of people, that was just Poplar. Well, Poplar was 20 people, 25 people. Poplar had a population of over 2,000. And of course you've heard the story about the Lucky Jack, haven't you?
No.
You see, Poplar, Gold Hill, that's where it is. The old miners' hotel, who's just been taken down. In my time, it was still. There's the only building left in there. It's a great big hotel, very nice too. Everything was good. And people called Alvin. John Alvin had it. And it was called Gold Hill because right there in Gold Hill, right right in the river, there was an old gold dredge. For dredging out the gold out the river. They were there for years. And just on the bank, where Cascade Creek comes down on the other side, they had one of the richest mines in the country, a thing called the Lucky Jack. And you know that the quartz was sticking out the ground like that with lumps of gold in it. And you know that the man who found it, they guarded it with rifles day and night, and he actually got $50,000 worth of gold with a hammer, knocked it off out of the quartz vein. And they drilled and they worked it and they've never found any more. You just had 1 vein full of free gold, great big chunks, free gold. And a fellow called, what was his name? I knew too. He was up there, he staked it and got it. The Swede group was another mine up there, same up there. But Poplar was a going concern in those days. But that was before me. They dwindled out of nothing when I get there. That the boom went like that, you see, when the whole Spokane boom, Cat and all, they all petered out. But you can go any bar on that Lardeau River, you can find gold. Any bar. During the Depression, during the 30s, friends of mine from Howser, Billy Clark, a chap called Billy Clark, Bertie Board, and Charlie Mallock, three Howser men, they had just a little contraption for catching gold. You see, one of these little sluice boxes, all hand done, and you know, they kept track of, and they figured that all the time they were there, about 2 years, they figured they made $3 a day.
Wow.
And it was just free gold. They got washed it and that applied to anywhere. And time and again, big companies have taken that whole Lardeau for dredging proposition, but they've never operated. They've dropped it, and then someone else comes along and stakes it. And I believe the reason for that is that in the bed of the Lardeau there's some enormous boulders, huge boulders, all big as this room and that sort of thing, which for a small outfit they couldn't handle. If it's a big outfit came in and could handle those things, it'd be all right. But there's plenty of gold there somewhere. They ever got down. Bedrock's a long way down too in places, and so it's for a small dredging outfit they couldn't make it better. That's the reason. Oh yes, you used to have these chaps coming in, all the trees along the Lardeau blaze, a new outfit just taken over the dredging, and you think someone's going to come in and start something, you know, and they go peace out like that. But Gold Hill was a famous place for it. And I saw the old dredge, I used to see it there. I suppose it's gone, rotted and gone now. But for years it was lying alongside at Gold Hill there, where that bridge crosses the river at Gold Hill. Just above it, right on this near bank, it used to lie down there. The old timbers of the gold dredge.
Did ever any politicians or important people come through the Lardeau that you recall?
Well, no, I don't think. Yes, it was quite. It must have been. They must have had a certain amount of pull with the old Conservative party because they got all kinds of concessions that I don't think for small people. Now, Haley, for that trail to be kept open between Haley's Landing, and the West Fork of the Duncan is about 22 miles. Mm-hmm. And that was kept open every summer. Mm-hmm. Every log cut out of it, and it was beautiful. It was a very nice trail. It was on the level, right through Big Timber, all the way. There was Hall Creek, Taylor Creek, Hoodoo Creek, and Caribou Creek. Those 4 big creeks. They had a nice big bridge across those 4. And that was kept. You could go up there with a horse or anything, any time, and just walk in and not have a log or anything to step over for that 22 miles. Mm. And this crew, about 6 men, used to come every summer. And they were up there for 2 months, 3 months, cleaning that out every summer.
That was a provincial government?
Yes,
for that.
Yes. Mm. And also, Huey Mackay or some of these must have had a lot of pull mining because they actually built that trail up Hall Creek, you know. Mm-hmm. And it's 4 miles of canyon, and they blasted it out of solid rock. Up to this, and this chap claimed was called the Red Elephant. Probably, I don't know if you heard of it, mm-hmm. But he had a claim, and he is to, and then of course there's the Bannockburn. There's another mine up there, and then just over the summit at the head of Haley Creek is that other mine. What's the name of it? I forget it now. Quite famous.
The Nutty Hell?
No, that's way up in the Ferguson country. This is where Haley Creek comes up and joins Hall Creek on the summit. Haley Creek just below Gerard.
Oh, I can't recall the names of them.
And it's just on this side of the summit. And that was you would go up Hall Creek and come down Haley. That's the way it is.
You said Haley was a jockey? Is that right?
He was an Irishman. He was all right, yes. In Ireland, he was a jockey. And some rich American had him to come out to ride for him, you see. And I don't know what happened with it. He got started. Then he left them, and he got into a big company down in Texas or somewhere in the hills, handling horses in the Rockies, you see. Mm-hmm. And then he gradually drifted north. See, as things were going, and he landed up during the boom days in there, and he thought, my God, now this is for me. And he had a little money, I suppose, and he built this little log house and got a bunch of horses and started on himself.
How many rooms were there in the hotel? How many rooms were there in the hotel?
Oh, he had about 5 or 6 bedrooms, all built out of the logs, and a living room and a bar and a drawing room kitchen.
Was it comfortable?
Very nice, quite nice, yes. Rough and ready, but beautiful meals. And Maud's a good cook, and they looked after you very well, you know. And being out in the woods, you come there miles from anywhere. 25 miles above Howser, not a living soul. And that way, God knows where. Up to the main line of CPR, I suppose. So it was well in the woods. And Haley was a good host, and he's a very good horseman. And he had one job he had where he took some cables up to some mine, and it took 6 horses to take the cables. He had a coil on this horse, then he came back and the next coil on this horse, and they were all six of them took that one piece cable in one piece up there. And he'd go out, he'd pack me up. I used to go hunting way up there, Duncan, way up the West Fork, a place called Marshadam Creek, way up there. It's all slides and wonderful bear country. And he used to give us a horse, you see. He said just take the horse up with you to 22 miles up, pack your stuff in. There's a cabin there belonging to Earl Stevens, just to get permission. Stevens said, sure, you can use my cabin, just to stay there for hunting. He said, when you get there, just turn the horse loose, still come back, trail to our head. So that's it, we used to get to use it like that.
And then how would you get back?
Everyone?
Then
you'd have to probably, well, we could have walked back, or else said, Jack, how about coming up in a week's time and getting it? He'd be there. If you want to make that arrangement, if you didn't, well, then just come out best way you could. Or if you had a big bear or some heavy load, you could leave it in the cabin, go down, get a horse and bring it up. But that's it, yes. Oh, I knew him very well. I used to go up and stay there in the fall and hunt. And that Upper Duncan was a very nice country. There was a huge cranberry marsh up there. With these proper cranberries, the low bush, the ones that grow in the swamp, you know. And the ducks were something out of this world, all gone when the flooded just all spoiled that country. Absolutely ruined it. And the cedars, my God, man, you never saw such cedar in all your life. Cedar trees there, the grain. Well, we had one fire camp and we made all our buildings out of the woods. You know, you can get a log there 10 feet, 12 feet long, and with a froe neck you split out planks. Started, bang, the things were right up here, that thick, that wide planks, right out of green timber. Beautiful stuff, you know. And that was, a lot of that was just standing flooded, dead in the trees. And well, what they did is a god-awful thing that for I do not know. They don't get 1 ounce of power out of it. And they say that it'll control the Columbia, but I doubt it. I think these new things on the Columbia they're building now will do all that. The Duncan wasn't such a huge river. It's only that one little river that was affected. It might affect a few feet, but it's the Columbia that's the boy that did the trouble through the Arrow Lakes, and that won't be controlled. But Howser didn't, and no one made any money out of it, and ruined a nice valley.
Were they shipping fruit out of Howser?
What?
Did they ship fruit from Howser?
Well, they had fruit orchards up there, but mind you, we found out that being so far back, and only a train a week, I mean, see, what could you do? Is that much extra to get to the market around Kaslo, and that they were having fruit, but we had that extra bit to get to Kaslo, you see. So everything, it was not practical. They shipped a little, yes. The two Matthew brothers, they depended. The Matthew brothers, chap from eastern Canada, they came from Peterborough, Ontario, and they were both farmers. Their farmers been for years in Ontario. They were very, very, very good farmers, and they farmed that place. Bill and Harry, two of them, I knew them very well, the two bachelors, and they used to ship tons of vegetables to all the mines round in the fall. Kept turnips and carrots and potatoes and all that sort of thing. And they had honey, and they had had chickens and eggs, and we get our eggs from them. Another character that you ought to hear about is this fellow. What is his name? He lived up at just above the house at Bosworth.
On the Lardeau.
In the Lardeau Valley, yes.
Miner?
What?
Was he a miner?
No, he did nothing. He came out from England, a whole bunch of them, and he stayed there. He was a farmer, and he had 4 acres of bulbs.
Of
tulips? Tulips and daffodils. You never saw such a sight. He lived up to the 16-mile board. Ted Evans. You heard of him. He died about a year ago. They found him dead in the cabin. He'd been there all year round. He's a very, very wonderful mechanic. He'd done all his apprentices in England, and companies offered him enormous jobs. He was capable of taking over a big mill and running it and all that sort of thing. No, so he liked this farm up there and stayed there all these years running. He built his own little sawmill and everything, and had all these bulbs. And he was selling them, you see, in the fall, selling bulbs, that he was doing. And one day this was in the 30s, I went up to see his place, and you came over a hill, and there was a big valley there, about 5 acres. You never saw it as I know. 5 acres of solid bulbs growing in among the timber suddenly. And here was all these beautiful flowers, and right at the back, 2 black bears to make a background, you know. And we used to buy bulbs, you know, beautiful tulips and daffodils, 35 and 40 cents a dozen. And he sold them to greenhouses to get their winter flowers, you see. And he made quite a little thing out of it. Then he quit that, and he had chickens, and he built his own house, and he built his own sawmill, and cut logs and everything. He was a very smart man, but he wouldn't do it. He'd stay there all those years. And the place was called Boston. Help yourself to one of these, will you? And I knew Ted very well. And then we had a young fellow from California. You probably his name, I forgot it now. He lived up halfway between Gold Hill and Bosworth, so it's 18-mile board. And he married, I'll tell you who his wife was, that head guy, Argenta's wife. The Quaker, the head man, what was his name again?
Oh, Wolf.
Wolf. He was Wolf's daughter, he married. And he only pulled out here about 2 years ago. You must have heard of him. What was his name? I knew him quite well. He logged, and finally he's gone. No, yes. Of course, that railway, you know, up from Lardeau, there's about 6 bad slides. That piece that comes from Lardeau till you get to the head of the lake. It's up and down, you know. And they used to the slides come down there pretty badly, and sometimes the train would be held up for 2 or 3 days. It took the engine, they have a snowplow and they'd push through it's 50, 60 feet deep, you know, full of rocks and timber and stuff, to clear that all out and get the trash going. My wife went down one day, left Howser by train, and they ran into these slides, and we only had 2 of them. They didn't get through the slides till about 6 in the morning next day, and to get to Nelson, it took 24 hours that time, because of the slides.
Did you ever go north to Revelstoke? Nelson was really your closest link.
Yes, I didn't go there. I've often been up that. I've been up that trip to Revelstoke, up the Arrow Lakes by boat, and then the train from Arrowhead, which is the place to Revelstoke on that branch line. But I never been actually in Revelstoke town, just in the station. So. You had to go up there to get the main line, you see, the main line train, to go up the coast. That's one way of doing it. The other was, then they didn't open up the Kettle Valley till just before the war. There was no Kettle Valley, no. That's the way you had to go up the Arrow Lakes and onto the Revelstoke, get the main line, go to the coast. Now, what else can I tell you? There's lots of it, but...
Do you remember a logger named McLaughlin, Billy McLaughlin? Not a logger, I'm sorry, a miner. A miner named Billy McLaughlin.
There's a McLaughlin who kept the hotel at Lardeau.
No, I don't think this is related.
No, he wouldn't be. No, I don't know him, but that's the only McLaughlin I knew, I think.
Were there several hotels in Lardeau?
Yes. There was the Britannia Hotel kept by Alvin, a chap called Alvin, and McLaughlin had the other hotel right opposite the depot.
Opposite the depot?
Yes, the track. The depot is here, the track, and this hotel there.
On the other side of the track?
Yes. And the other one was on the point, down a little bit lower in Lardeau. Well, somewhere near where the forestry building is now, right down that way.
Uh-huh.
Yes. Yes.
Where did most of the men that worked for you come from? Were they Swedish or were they British? Or?
Oh, no, as a matter of fact, two of our cutters. One was a Canadian from, I don't know where he came from, the east, and he had a partner, an Italian. And they cut together. Another fellow was a Swede. We had quite a few, and our teamster was a Swede. They were quite the logger men in those days, you know. And we had a couple of Swedes and this Italian, a logger, and our cook was a little Irishman called Paddy Cummings. So we had all kinds, all countries. But, we did very well. We made good money. Mind you, you take. There was no overhead. That's the beautiful part of it. A 60-foot pole. We, as I say, we got $16 for the pole, actually loaded on cars. Well, the 60-foot poles, they needed three flat cars, you see, 40-foot flat cars. So they loaded this 40, and the overhang of 20 was in the middle. The middle car was called the idler. It had nothing but the overhangs on it, you see. So if you had 60s, you had to have 3 cars and 2 loads of 60s. 60 on both these, and the overhang was in the middle car like this. And you could get about 120 60s on the 2 cars. And they blocked these 3 cars so they'd be more or less like one, you see, somehow. And as I say, it took quite a while, but you had to have stakes. You had to have 4 stakes on each side, up, and they had to be so high, I forget now, it's 13 feet, I think, from the track. It mustn't have any higher because the tunnels are cut 13 feet. And then 3 lots of wire. You'd have 2 rows of poles and you put a wire across. And you had to have 3 wires this way across. Then you had 3 more tiers, another set of wires, and then another set of wires on top. That was the standard. You had to, they wouldn't look at touch your poles. So all that cost money. But even buying the wire and getting the stakes and loading the poles and cutting them and hauling them and to pay the stumpage and royalty and everything, on a 60-foot pole, there was probably $8 clear profit per pole. But you wouldn't get today because you'd have a bulldozer that cost you $50,000, and if you're lucky for you, if you paid for all that equipment with your and that, you see, we had good. We paid our for a 60-foot pole in those days. We paid our cutters $1.50 they got for making a pole. 2.5 cents a foot for 60s, and so low down the grade. So, and my partner was the team. He looked after the team and hauling the stuff and seeing it all decked up on the landings, and I did the inspecting. I'd go round and look at the poles, see and see they were properly cut. The specifications, you see, they were properly peeled, no rot in them, and not too crooked. Or no cat faces or anything like that. All those things you had to check. So I had to go around with a thing, and I'd have a small peavey, and I'd turn the log over to see, because some of these Swedes are very clever. They'd peel your pole and they'd leave a strip underneath in the snow not peeled. So if you picked them up, they were up. So I just take and I roll them over, and if it wasn't peeled, I'd say, Sim, you've got a couple of poles in there, need another strip on. You better take it because I won't touch them till. And what I did was I had my Ainsworth was my partner, and my name Harrison. So we had H and A we had, and I branded them at the end of the pole. And the teamster was told to touch nothing until they had the brand on the end, HT. So if there was a pole there wasn't properly cut, I wouldn't stamp it. I'd tell him to tell the cutter to go and fix it before it was taken. So it was left in the wood if he didn't do it. So he did it. I didn't have very little like that, sometimes not. And you were allowed so many rot in the butt, no rot in the tip at all, and it's so much crook to a pole, and no cat face except below the ground line, all the regular, you knew it. So I had to go, that's my job, I had to go around checking all the stuff, you see, and pick it up. He did that. And then if there was anything in spare time, I'd cut a few myself, cut a pole myself. Oh, I said, no, I enjoyed it very much.
Did the loggers stay at camp?
Oh, we had a camp, yes. Oh, yes. We had a bunkhouse. We built a big tar paper cabin with lumber and 40 foot by 20. And there was a bunkhouse at 20 feet and the cookhouse at 20 feet, all in one building. You see, two great big, with these great big old stoves, you know, two wood and big. And we had their bunks, and we had stables there for that. Yeah, and then we pulled all that down some years after the logging was all over. We pulled the big building, and just my cabin was left. I used that for trapping in, and when I was done, as I say, I used it up to about 5 or 6 years ago. Then the fishing quit there, and there was no more. They couldn't trap it. But I got lots of always we'd average about 40, 50 beaver a year, and about the same amount of martin. And then the weasel, mink, lynx, and various stuff, wolverine, all the oddments like that. Yes, but we made good money out of that. Yeah.
These loggers would leave in the summer when you closed down?
Yes, that's it.
Stay and firefight, or what would they do?
Or don't they go back to whatever they're doing? They get a job somewhere else, or some of them. One man had a property in Arrow Lakes and he'd go back to his summer in the summer. And some of them were, this Italian was a very good rock man. He'd get a job on the road for drilling, rock drilling or something. In the winter there wasn't much like that, so he had to do something else, you see. I knew them chaps quite well. They were good cutters. These two fellows worked very well together. They were partners, these two men. They'd cut around 18, 20 pounds a day.
That was all with a 6-foot crosscut saw, 2-person? Or? So they'd work in pairs?
Yes, and they had small 5-foot saws. So they'd drop the tree together and butt it, and then they'd both had their small saws for tipping off and cutting the branches and then peeling. See, they'd probably drop 4 or 5 trees, cut them, tip them, measure them, and then they'd both get and peel them. See, and then they cut another bunch down. That's where they did it. Yes, oh yes. Oh, it was very interesting. We had these sloops, you know. They made runners made out of wood, just with curves like that, and a bunk across, and you just lay up, put the butt of the boat on it, chain them on, and drag it. And the team would drag 360s in like that. But they end up on the thing and wouldn't dig into it. We call them sloops. You made them out of the wood. And that was good, you see. We had a nice little camp, very nice camp. And all our supplies, being camp, would get wholesale. I got to deal with the wholesalers in Nelson. Get our meat by the side or half.
And you'd put some of the logs in the river, you said?
No, in the logs, yes.
Not the poles, though.
No poles. The poles. Well, we had a small drive with poles, that's all, because we had a limit later on about 4 miles up the river on the other side of the river. Now, we had to bring them down to Howser to load them. And we did drive them the 4 miles. But it was a very nice proposition, because at Howser there's a great big log jam. And in the middle of the log jam there's a hole about from here to there. And in this side, so we had ground spoons put out to guide these poles in. They'd come in through the jam into a little bit of a backwater. And then we'd haul